News updates
with Cary Harrison
on KPFK 90.7 FM Los Angeles, 89.7 FM Santa Barbara.
Cary Harrison with your Los Angeles Blaze briefing. The devastating wildfires in Los Angeles have claimed at least 10 lives, destroyed.
Breaking news.
180,000 residents to evacuate. Despite the efforts of thousands of firefighters, the biggest blazes remain uncontained, with weather conditions and climate change expected to fan the flames for days to come. In LA County, 179,000 people are under evacuation orders, with another 200,000 on alert. More than 10,000 buildings have been razed, with 60,000 more at risk. Insured losses expected to exceed $8 billion. A man has been arrested on suspicion of starting a new fire, but the causes of the original fires remain unknown. National Guard troops have been deployed to prevent looting, with 20 arrests made so far. Fires have also affected celebrities, including Mel Gibson, Leighton Meester, Adam Brody, who have all lost their homes. Fire officials are battling 5 major fires, including the Palisades and Eaton fires, which have scorched nearly 20,000 acres and 14,000 acres respectively. Questions are being raised about the city's preparedness for these fires, with some firefighters reporting hoses running dry. Mayor Karen Bass has faced intense questioning about her leadership and the water issues. Meanwhile, KTLA reports there's a camp set up in Brooksville Park in Pasadena that's feeding people, getting donations, and telling anyone who needs anything to please come on down. I'll continue to bring updates on the latest developments. For now, this is Cary Harrison with your special report on the Los Angeles wildfires.
From Los Angeles, Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison.
I've spent a decade taking a bite out of conspiracy theories, unraveling urban legends, and grappling with worldwide top secret issues.
I've even racked up some of their awards.
Wow, I mean, first of all, what a question.
Journalism is about telling the truth, all while ferreting out the bottom line.
I'm a Harrison Hellraiser.
With me, Cary Harrison, as your guide.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison.
And it is Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison on this special edition of Rethinking Heroes. Apologies for my voice, but it's torn by smoke, me and tens of thousands of others of you here. And I'm certainly not the only one. In just a few minutes, I'm going to open up the phones because it's critical that you be heard during this time of horrific disaster. I want you to be able to resonate with your neighbors, offer information as you know it, as you learn it, and most importantly, know that you are not alone. In fact, following this 1-hour broadcast, I'm going to continue on a live video stream on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, X, LinkedIn, and our KPFK Facebook page to take your then online calls for a second hour. I'll give you more information on that shortly. These fires don't seem to want to stop. LA's densely populated urban landscape, including miles of chaparral and dry eucalyptus trees, also include flammable material with hanging power cables, a city landscape with wooden telephone poles going back to the 1920s, homes built with wood to satisfy earthquake codes. Then you add in the bone-dry low humidity, the high-temperature Santa Ana winds to fan wildfires, all blowing over the hilltops and down through the canyons. The concept of the complete loss of the Pacific Palisades is unthinkable. The remains look like Vesuvius without, thankfully, that same loss of life. We've been fighting a wildfire with urban water systems, it turns out. Corner fire hydrants and people attempting to use garden hoses. It's not that there's not enough water here in Southern California. It's that there's not enough water in any given area for the several hours that you need it to saturate those fires. Meanwhile, President Trump has often voiced criticisms of Los Angeles and California, but many of us here in the city are hopeful that his administration will extend real support in the wake of the recent devastating fires. As we start to rebuild and recover, we look to the federal government for leadership and assistance in addressing the challenges ahead. ensuring the safety and resilience of greater LA. We're now the center of the world's attention. We're being televised 24/7, not like we used to when it was red carpets. There seems to be an ever deeper scrutiny into not only what happened, but the emerging politics of our very vast area. A Mother Jones analysis of voting data may explain why you're hearing and seeing things on Fox, CNN, and newspapers that don't seem to make sense in the middle of a disaster. Their data shows that a recent presidential election, ours, rich voters remained loyal to Kamala as Latino and Asian voters moved to the right, revealing fissures in a Democratic Party that sees itself as a champion of the working class and is being hammered today by news pundits all across the nation. Comparing the recent presidential results versus 2020, 5 cities in Los Angeles, we're comprised of some 65, 67 different cities all tethered together with no borders that you can actually see. But 5 of these cities saw shifts towards Donald Trump ranging from 36% to 46%, 43% rather. But why? How is this going to affect our great city with recovery efforts pegged to a seemingly hostile Washington, D.C.? Joining us now is Noah Leonard with Mother Jones magazine. Noah was Mother Jones' lead immigration reporter during Donald Trump's first term. And since then, he has written about labor, electoral politics, and the war in Israel and Gaza. Prior to Mother Jones, he was a fellow at Washingtonian magazine and got started in journalism by freelancing in the heart of it all, Mexico City, some time ago. Noah Leonard, welcome to Rethinking Heroes.
Thanks for having me on, Cary.
We are glad to have you here today. I wish it were a happy, normal day. It is not. So we're just going to have to flex a little bit here, if that's okay.
Oh, of course. Yes. No, this article came out only a couple of weeks ago, but it feels like it was published at such a different time and in a different city entirely.
And yet it speaks to what may come, and what people are actually wringing their hands about is there going to be open minds and reasonable help from people that don't think some people, you get it. Let's just jump into it.
Absolutely.
Source of this bizarre phenomenon where working class Latino voters in Southeast Los Angeles have been flocking to the Republican Party despite Trump's inflammatory rhetoric on exactly them and clear threats to deport exactly them. Yet, here it is. He got their support.
Yes, no, it's a big shift. And I spent the week before the election in the Central Valley of California and saw very similar things, and the results were very similar there. I mean, it's been a massive shift. Like you said, the data shows about a 40% shift towards Trump in the last 8 years in Southeast Los Angeles. And I know your listeners know this, but Southeast Los Angeles, it is overwhelmingly Latino. Huntington Park, the main city I focused on, is 97% Latino, and it's specifically a very working class and often in some cases poor community. So it's a specific slice of LA's Latino community. But yes, there's a massive shift. It's worth noting overall it is still voting Democrat, but it's a huge shift. It used to be 88% to 8%, an almost 80-point gap, and now that's been cut in half. So, and it's not just that Democrats are staying home too. Donald Trump is getting 3 or 4 times as many votes as he used to in many of these precincts.
Noah Leonard, how do we reconcile the fact that affluent, educated voters in Los Angeles are sticking with the Democrats still, while working class Asian and Latino voters are increasingly drawn to the GOP? I mean, talk about low-hanging fruit that should never disappear from your platform that's supposed to be about working people. They're like, now we're going over to the GOP.
Yeah, it's quite striking. I mean, on the flip side, if you look at, the west side of LA, coastal communities, Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, et cetera, these places have basically stayed the same over the past 8 years. There's been almost no shift. And in some cases, Democrats are actually doing better a little bit than they were 8 years ago. So how do we explain that? I mean, I think a lot of that is Donald Trump himself. He is a very, distasteful and crass person. I mean, to a lot of particularly college educated voters. I mean, there's a level of, your listeners know it. He's extremely disliked or hated by many people, particularly college-educated voters. But when I talked with more working-class voters and Latino working-class voters in either the Central Valley or in Southeast LA, what I heard over and over again was just the sense that the economy was better. 4 years ago, things were more affordable, homes were more affordable, groceries, and a hope that Donald Trump would bring back the economy that he had 4 years ago. Obviously, I think it's, the economy is much more complicated than that, and COVID and supply chain disruptions and all that. But that's what I was hearing from a lot of voters as to why they were voting for Trump. And also, the one other thing is, they lived under Trump for 4 years, and deportations didn't go up as much as maybe they expected. If they have undocumented relatives, they probably weren't deported in that period. So people thought, hey, we survived it once. We could again.
Do you sense that there's any awareness, Noah Leonard with Mother Jones magazine, any awareness with any of these people that while purging up to 30 million people from the United States, really what's going to happen is they're just going to get visas, which are then going to peg them to a corporation, which makes them indentured servants as opposed to blowing them all out. I think that's what we're ultimately going to see, is a way to legally peg them to something, but then they are forced and required to do all sorts of things that they wouldn't when they're just picking vegetables and going to bed. All that to say, do you feel that they have an awareness now that, say, Lord Kikius Maximus, I only use the name that Elon Musk rebranded himself with, Lord Kikius Maximus, is now importing at least 700 people of the same skin color, but that have education levels useful to Lord Kikius Maximus. In short, they're great rocket scientists or this, or that. Yet the MAGA people that voted for Donald Trump are not worthy of even swabbing his decks. So there seems to be an awareness of this happening. Is there resentment starting, or is the Kool-Aid still being guzzled?
I mean, I think it was also a reluctant vote among some of these voters. And two, I think also, one important note here is, of course, we're talking about Latino voters. So we're talking about, Latino Americans who are U.S. citizens. And I think, although I did speak to one undocumented Guatemalan woman in Huntington Park who was excited that Trump won, I think the people who are voting for Trump kind of by definition are not really at risk of deportation because they're U.S. citizens. So I think that also colors it. People across many communities are thinking of their own pocketbooks, and because they don't have that risk, it makes it easier to vote for Trump. But I also think one other thing I heard too is just because people are Latino, or Asian doesn't mean they necessarily support every piece of progressive immigration policy. So I did hear some frustrations with the situation and chaos that existed at the border over the past 4 years under the Biden administration. And there was also some resentment because, the population of people who is coming has changed. Traditionally was overwhelmingly Mexican people coming to the United States across the border. Now it really is people from all over the world, lots of Venezuelans, Ecuadorians, but really many countries. And because some of those people are getting work permits through the asylum system, there is some resentment of saying, hey, they're kind of getting an easier ride than we had when maybe we came 20, 30, 40 years ago and later were able to obtain citizenship through different means.
I also think of all the vets, those that might still be alive after World War II, very few of them still, but fighting fascism, fighting Nazis for real. Not that anyone knows what that really means anymore. Certainly in the Korean War, they also had a sense. Many of our veterans remember the oath that they swore. The idea, whether it's real or not, of invading Canada, which is a NATO partner, which would trigger Article 5, which would mean France would come to the aid of Canada. So would Germany. So would all of Western Europe, plus a bunch of other countries. I mean, it's so insane. It's impossible, not to mention the Nuremberg laws, which many of us still enshrine as being important. All of this, I think, is used. So we're looking at the left hand while the right hand is dealing with hush money payments and having 34 felonies. And I imagine, Noah, if you had one felony, you're not going to be allowed on the airplane. And they're certainly not going to give you an alcoholic beverage or bring a suitcase or even go out of your house with a suitcase. One felony. But all of this is so we simply don't look at who it is and we fight in the corner, whether we fight over abortion, whether we fight over the sudden dreadful notion a drag queen could drive from one street to another. Yep. It could happen. And therefore, all hands on deck. It is the most ridiculous circus level, fusillade of nonsense. And the rest of the people of Earth are looking at us. We don't seem to see it ourselves. So I'm just wondering, sort of, as we wrap this up, with an eye to the fire, and I really appreciate you coming on, because this is going to help, because so many of us in Los Angeles have the same expectation that we're going to have the same government that we have right now that is offering all kinds of assistance and help following this disaster. We may not see that from the same administration that is promising to make America better again, great again. I would say that America's second largest city in the United States, Los Angeles, the media capital of Earth, is going to be pretty important in making America great again.
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, I think, predicting what whims Donald Trump will have one day out, let alone a couple weeks out or months away, is can be a fool's errand. I hope, of course, that he supports Los Angeles through this tragic and unimaginable moment. And as talking about kind of the political challenges ahead here too for the Democrats, I think like one other thing that I would mention here is, Democrats are in a tricky place because the voters who are sticking with them and have stuck with Harris, the other issue they have is they actually do tend to be more conservative than a lot of the Latinos who are abandoning the party. It's very paradoxical. But for example, if you look at the minimum wage vote, it was the voters who stuck with Harris who were actually way less likely to vote for raising the minimum wage, that ballot measure that was in California this year. Whereas in Huntington Park, they drifted towards Trump, but also were more likely to support the minimum wage. So the Democrats are in a real challenge right now in terms of how do they build a coherent base that actually makes sense if you are to be a working class party.
I very much appreciate your time, my friend, and also recognize that during this particular time, I think everyone is going to get together and many people will dump their belief systems that were stirred up out of nowhere, out of a vacuum. People didn't have these belief systems until they were invited to have them. And I think we're going to be back to lots of plebiscites and interest in creating a really great place to live and restore it. Much as you, I believe you're up in the San Francisco and the Bay Area.
Well, I used to live there. I'm in New York these days, but my in-laws are from LA. They're actually in the evacuation warning zone in LA. So yeah, they were at a hotel in Manhattan Beach a couple days ago. They're back home for now and kind of keeping an eye on if it moves to the mandatory zone. So I'm following this very, very closely for personal reasons as well.
Well, I'm looking forward to having you on. We'll flesh this out and the next thing you're doing at the same time. And I want to thank you for having come on today amidst all of this. We've been exploring how a city that happens to be under Democratic leadership is recovering from its worst disaster on record and how it sits in the crosshairs of the incoming Trump-Musk administration. We're talking with Mother Jones Magazine's Noah Leonard, lead immigration reporter during Donald Trump's first term. So he's going to be a critical voice for us to check in with on and on. Since then, he's written about labor, electoral politics, and the war on Israel and Gaza. Previously, he was a fellow at Washingtonian Magazine. And if you Google Noah Leonard and Mother Jones, you're going to see a ton of very important and cool stuff. Thank you for coming on today, my friend.
Thanks very much, Cary.
All right. Coming up with this third most destructive fire in all of California history, you are not alone. You've not been abandoned. Coming up in a moment, your calls, your voices, information you might have, and the impact these multiple elements have had on your life. Again, apologies for my smoke-torn voice, but my mission is to stay here with you through thick and thin. We're going to take the calls of impacted people first, understanding that the trauma is widespread for the many millions across our area. Your Harrison hotlines are 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-KPFK. You can also connect. We're going to try some new technology here as a video call on any of our live streaming platforms like YouTube and Instagram, Twitter X, or LinkedIn. All of them using a variation of Cary Harrison. When you get there, it's just as easy as Zoom. Simply go to kpfk.net. kpfk.net, different from our .org, of course. kpfk.net will connect you directly to Rethinking Heroes as a video stream so you can do it on your mobile phone, your smartphone. That's kpfk.net, or, of course, pick up the phone right now, And let's hear from you and what you're going through at 818-985-KPFK.
We are in complete control. Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
Preventing truth decay.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
And it is Rethinking Heroes, RethinkingHeroes.com. Don't forget to go to RethinkingHeroes.com and sign up for our free newsletter where we can send you information that we cannot do on the radio, or when we're not on the radio, simply not available to do it. It's filled with background. You'll get transcripts from interviews. You'll get analyses. You'll get all kinds of cool stuff. Our favorite price, free. Go to RethinkingHeroes.com, RethinkingHeroes.com, and get all of that. Well, the Los Angeles wildfires have left an indelible mark on our community, taking lives, some lives, thousands of homes, and many soon-to-be-discovered livelihoods. We still have 500,000 customers statewide without power. The Wall Street Journal calculates the LA wildfires to be the costliest in American history, with total losses estimated to be as high as $50 billion. I know you've been affected by the wildfires, and I want to hear from you. You see, your voice matters. Your experience is valid, and your information is needed. We can't learn from every angle if we don't hear, or at least reach out to every angle. And mostly, I don't want you to feel alone in this. You're not alone. A lot of people are retired or trapped. They live and have lived alone in any of the millions of apartments in town. No one to talk to, no one to vent. Your radio is on. This is your chance to be heard and to know that you are not alone. Thousands of others who are walking through the same hell, who have lost the same, and who are struggling to rebuild. So use this radio station for what it was originally intended to do, to bring us together as a community and share our experience, strength, and hope. Your Harrison hotlines right now are 818-985-5735, 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-KPFK. If you're not listening on a portable or car radio, you can also connect through your mobile phone as a video call to be heard on any of our live streaming platforms like the KPFK Facebook page, the Cary Harrison YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, X, or LinkedIn pages, all of them using a variation, like I said, of Cary Harrison when you search there. You can connect via video. It's just as easy as Zoom. Simply go to kpfk.net, kpfk.net, different from our kpfk.org. kpfk.net will take you directly to Rethinking Heroes using your smartphone. That's kpfk.net, or call right now, 818-985-KPFK, and tell the stories. What do you see? What is it like for you? What do you know? What has happened to your neighbors? How do you see a future getting fixed? And if the fire is still heading in your direction, what do you know about it? And how does that feel? I want to make sure you do not feel alone. I'm going to play you a quick report we did on our national. It's going to talk a little bit about climate change and the overlap because it's quite real. And it's important to note that these things, as much as the 2 category 4 and 5 hurricanes 1 week apart that slammed into Florida, abnormal and weird. It's not a freak of nature. This is how climate change plays out. So we're all going to want to be more mindful that the future could come that way. 818-985-5735, 818-985-5735, 818-985 KPFK. The wildfires ravaging Southern California are fueled by high winds and dry conditions, but experts say climate change is the underlying factor, increasing the likelihood of these devastating blazes. The Southern California fires are a perfect storm of natural and human-induced factors. High winds, known as Santa Ana winds, are blowing at speeds of up to 70 miles per hour, drying out the land and spreading the flames. But researchers say climate change is altering the background conditions, making these fires more likely and more intense. Lack of rain in recent months following a very warm summer have brought dry conditions that have created a tinderbox of shrubs and trees, perfect fuel for fires. Climate researcher Daniel Swain from UCLA says the strong winds are not only spreading the fires, but also changing their location.
This is looking worse and worse the more information we get, especially what unfolded late yesterday and in the overnight hours. I think a lot of the worst fears did come true, at least in terms of structural loss, which is now confirmed to be in the thousands.
A warming climate makes it more difficult to forecast the likelihood of landslides, which can happen as a result of sudden tree loss through burning. Large exposed areas during rain can create new geological hazards, according to Dr. Daniel Sturmer, an associate professor of geology at the University of Cincinnati.
We've seen a real increase and spread in wildfire risk. So we've gone from kind of having a wildfire season at the end of summer to, in some places, having wildfire season all year round. And wildfires, they remove most or all of the vegetation from hillsides, and that vegetation acts to really stabilize hillsides. So if you are removing all of that vegetation, that makes it a lot easier for the next time it rains for that loose soil and loose material to move downhill.
Dr. Daniel Sturmer. Dr. Tony Pereira, UCLA PhD and Fulbright scholar and UNESCO Sustainability Award winner, explains how these unusual fire events seem to be happening.
The recent fires in Los Angeles are a direct consequence of the changing climate, and which is another effect of global warming. Global warming is accumulating, is the accumulation of enormous quantities of heat, and has created conditions that some parts of the planet warm up quite a bit, others cool off. We have been in exceptional period of drought, a scarcity of water, and everything comes in a small flame of any sort, and everything turns into fire.
Whether it's California Governor Gavin Newsom or climate scientists across Europe, wildfires such as these, or twin category 4 and 5 hurricanes in Florida, are no longer freak accidents. Former Vice President Al Gore told me it needs to go beyond you and me to greater accountability for the fossil fuel industry, for governments, and other nations who are continuously increasing carbon emissions, because the results are what we're seeing quite literally today.
And part of what these deniers try to communicate is that the only way to solve this crisis is for individuals to make changes in their own lives. We've made those changes. Many millions of others have. But we have to stop kidding ourselves. This is not a me problem. It's a we problem. We have to have new laws. We have to have a treaty. We have to have collective action. So that, for example, a tax on CO2 to replace employment taxes. We have to have a treaty at Bali. We can't leave this up to individual, private, isolated actions. This is a world problem, and we have to have a world collective solution to it.
former Vice President Al Gore, and author of The Future and an Inconvenient Truth. The Southern California fires are a stark reminder of the growing threat of climate change and a reminder to stay prepared for the unusual, if not impossible, including the after effects of catastrophic disasters. LA County tax assessor Jeffrey Prang has announced that the county will process, quote, misfortune and calamity claims for property tax relief for properties damaged or destroyed by the wildfires. You can expect to see more from the city and county as tens of thousands are now affected one way or the other. Cary Harrison with you. This is Rethinking Heroes, rethinkingheroes.com. We're talking right now about what's going on with you and taking your calls at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Let's go first to Mark. Mark, you're on Rethinking Heroes.
I just think that the insurance people seem to, they knew this was coming and dropped everybody, but that's kind of peculiar that the State Insurance Commission would allow them to selectively drop things without a long-term plan. But anyway, out here in Long Beach, the air is worse than like up in Santa Monica, but that's just the way it's been affecting me.
Well, thank you so much, my friend. Very much appreciated. I know how you feel. You can hear my voice. It sounds just like yours. Yours probably sounds better. And we've got days more to go in this. Thank you so much. 818-985-KPFK. That does open up a line. We are taking your calls so that you can have a place to feel not alone and talk about your experiences. With insurance, we saw the same thing. Uniquely in another state that seems to have the same level of natural disasters, literally on the other coast, that would be Florida. We saw two catastrophic hurricanes, Helene and what was the other one? Was it Martin? Something like that. They came in Category 4, Category 5, up and down, and devastated the entire Tampa Bay area, devastated Fort Myers. That was Ian before. And a lot of people lost their lives. North Carolina, shockingly, just the afterglow of the hurricane destroyed so many cities and towns. This being climate change, all that to say, the insurance companies pulled out. So people had lost everything. They had paid their insurance. They had behaved. They had paid on time. And then they were told, sorry, we don't have the money, whether they did or not. The governor of Florida at the time was running for president. He said, how about this? I'm running for president. You write the laws that you like. I'll sign them from Iowa or wherever I am, and then you can stay. And so keep an eye out. Newsom would never do that, nor would much of the assembly ever go for any concocted idea like that. But it kept the insurance companies in Florida. But right now, if you have a house and a pool and like a little coach house or a mother-in-law, whatever those are called, you're paying about $23,000 a year for homeowners insurance. And the insurance companies will get away with what they can. So this is an area where you and I need to wrest control back into how commerce is done, especially when bad things happen, because we have examples of where it could go otherwise. Let's go to a call in. I see from Long Beach. I'm not sure who that is. We'll update that. How about Harold in Pasadena? You're on Rethinking Heroes. Welcome. Hello, Harold. All right, let's put Harold on hold. Let's go to Brittany. Brittany is on line 3. Brittany, welcome to Rethinking Heroes.
Hello.
Hello, this must be Harold.
Yes, it is. How you doing?
Doing great, my friend. Good to hear your voice.
Good to hear your voice and good radio, and thank you for giving the public voice. But most importantly, I'm very proud of you, even though you're a conservative, for all your statements. But most importantly, I can't say this over the airwaves. They knew this. They knew this. This was planned. Our governor sent water out of the state. Let me go for a ramble, but you do the good work as a conservative. Have others respect the Constitution. I lost 3 uncles in World War II. Bye now.
Well, thank you so much. I think you think I'm a conservative. Well, okay, sure, why not? If that gets me in your club, I'm good. I am so neutral. I am an independent, and I stay that way, not only for my work, but my family came over on the Mayflower. My ancestors signed the Declaration of Independence and helped frame the Constitution. So that's where my allegiance is. And it really is in the spirit of the commons, the commonwealth that you and I own most of this country, and that we are the owners, and that the government is the employee to do our bidding so that we can have the life and not have restrictions to the good living that we deserve, desire, the educations, things that people did once know. And hopefully we can get that all back. So I don't know if you can label it or not. Let's just call it common sense. Let's jump to, I can't really tell. I've got so many calls here. Do we want to do Long Beach here? Wendell, you have to tell me who. Okay, while we're sorting that out, that was Brittany. Brittany, you're on Rethinking Heroes. Hello, Brittany.
Thanks for having me. Well, I just wanted to, extend my heartfelt condolences to everyone being impacted in Southern California. I am the director of marketing at a specialty pharmacy based in Whittier called California Specialty Pharmacy. We just wanted to get the word out to patients and those that are in need of these chronic daily medications, that we are fully operational. We are supporting patients during this difficult time. We have lots of patients that are impacted, and there are lots of individuals that are impacted across the area. We are working proactively to make sure that patients that have been displaced get their medications in a timely manner. We are here to support them, and if there are any patients that are looking for support for their specialty medications or infusion treatments that they may not have access to, we are here to help, and they can contact our pharmacy at any time, and we'll do our very best to make sure they get all the things that they need.
Let me do a special thing. We don't normally give out, obviously, commercial phone numbers and such, but you're a pharmacy. You're able to fulfill life-saving medications, which they are for so many people. How do they find you?
Yeah. So they can go online to CSPRX.com or call 877-602-7779.
Give that number again, please. Give that number again.
877-602-7779. And again, we're here to help patients that need specialty medications. If there are folks that need non-specialty medications like blood pressure medication or cholesterol medication, we encourage them to contact their local retail pharmacy, so there's CVS or Walgreens. And then for all other specialty needs, we're here to help as much as we can.
Let me ask what a specialty medication is. Not every people that use them understand the code, but other people that don't might not know that code is actually their medication. Give me a range of things.
So specialty medications are for complex and rare conditions. They typically are chronic in nature. So think things for treatments for cancer, autoimmune issues, neurological issues, other things. They're not available at your typical retail pharmacy. So you might have, pharmacies, two or three pharmacies that are servicing medication needs for patients. And so the medications that we provide often require special handling, like refrigeration, and specific administration, like self-injectables or infusions. So our team is on the ready to help anyone that might need access to these medications that they they might be lacking at this point in time.
The another medication would be something called Descovy, which people who are on PrEP, and there are tens of thousands of people across Los Angeles who are on PrEP, and you take it to avoid getting HIV, but you have to be compliant, which means you have to be on it. If you suddenly go off it, you suddenly become open to anything. These also fall in that category. So if you have something that you really have to take every day that combats a serious issue, you now know you can call Brittany and give out your number once again, Brittany.
877-602-7779.
Great. I thank you so much for your call, and thanks for being a hero.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Cary Harrison with you. This is a special edition of Rethinking Heroes. We are really taking your calls and talking about what you're going through during a disaster that is so horrific. You couldn't write about it, make a Netflix series, and make it even remotely believable, but it's actually happening to us here. And one of the things that radio does well is we are real time, we are live, we are on location. We can be everywhere ubiquitously all at the same time and get information out well before television. We don't have to drive a truck. We don't have to set up satellites. We don't have to go through all the rehearsals. We can just bring you on. You can tell us what you see, what you know, what you hear, what your situation is like, what you're going through, what you've seen of your neighbors. Is your dog missing? I realize it can look and feel like many different things, but without a place for you to go, you can feel alone. And this is radio. This is at least how I was trained years ago. When I lived in different places, I was in New York. I've been in Chicago at CBS. And one of the things we did during hurricanes or ice storms or whatever is I would do 8-hour shifts and take calls. And you're not really trained for that, but you're a human being. And that's your job, is to be there and help others and let us never feel alone. Let's go to Lee in Sepulveda. You're on Rethinking Heroes.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, Cary. The person that called earlier and calls himself a conservative, all of those people who call themselves conservatives are not conservatives. Conservatives take care of things. They make sure all the forest isn't chopped down, all the fish aren't taken out. Conservatives, what people are calling themselves conservatives are nothing but they're just greedy Republicans. That's all. So as a conservative, I know what a conservative is, and they are not conservatives. Okay, good. So there's that. My question that I want to know that's important to me is, do you know anything about Judge Merchan's sentencing of Trump today? Do you know what occurred? Because the reason I'm saying it is there's a petition that's going to happen, and you'll be sent one, about are we going to allow a felon to be president? And so that's why his sentencing today is so important.
Well, yeah, I don't know yet. All I can do is speculate. And I'm also sitting here on the air, so I can't really lean over and monitor everything as much as I would love to. We already have a felon about to be president. The founding fathers never imagined such a thing. And they thought, should somebody become, as they called it, a rascal, the cure to that would be impeachment. And then Bob's your uncle. It's done. We can move on. But this is so beyond anything that was ever imagined. And this judge is going to play an instrumental part. So if you learn earlier than I do, please feel free to let me know, okay?
Okay, great. I thank you so much. And you will be getting the petition no matter which way it goes.
Great. I appreciate that, my friend.
I will email it to you.
Okay. Thank you, Lee. I appreciate it very much.
Oh, hey, listen, I'll tell you how to do it better. It's going to be posted at pasoir.com after the judgment today. It will be at P as in Paul, ASOIR.com. You'll be able to find it there. I won't need to email you.
Pussoir as opposed to pissoir, even though it's the same thing now.
Oh, you're so cute. Yes, that's
traveler.
It. All right. Thank you so much.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much, Lee. That opens up a line everywhere, all across greater Los Angeles. 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 5735. I'd like to hear what you're going through, what you see, what your life is like now. Many of us are afraid. Please don't be too afraid to call. You're safe here with me. I want you to know you are not alone. That is the point of us opening up the phone lines. In fact, I just got a message that we're going to continue this show into from 10 to 11, a special 1 hour, continue the call-ins. And the theme is going to be special live coverage of the California wildfires here on KPFK, and we'll have some experts. We'll have some other things. You don't want to miss it. This is our chance in radio to give back. For many years, we've been asking you to help us. Helping us helps you, no doubt about it. But here's a chance where we can help you back and just do it because it's the right thing to do. And I am happy that it gets to be me. So please do that. Also, we've opened up a second way that's a little more digital, a little more modern. If you want to call in using your mobile phone, using video chat, because we're live streaming right now on YouTube, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, everywhere. Everything with a chip and a signal, including the KPFK Facebook page. And it's all under Cary Harrison, CaryHarrison, except for the KPFK Facebook page. You can go to anywhere and just put in my name and you'll see video and you'll be able to hear your calls. So if you don't have a landline because you haven't had electricity in 3 or 4 days and you can't figure out how to call the portable crank up radio, you can also just go to kpfk.net, kpfk.net, and it will automatically connect you as a video call, like a Zoom. So no matter what, we want to make sure we get your voice in. So try that. Feel free to try it and experience yet a new way. We're going to go to the phones in just a second. Let me give out the numbers once again. Tell me your stories, how you have been impacted, how that making you impacted may have changed your life. And let's also come up with some ideas of what the future can look like. So you don't have to just sit with devastation, with ruin, with no plan, and nobody cares. You have tens of thousands of people who you have never even met who will resonate with what you're going through. Many will have great ideas. We're hearing today already on the show, people want to extend themselves. We've had pharmacies call in, say, look, if you need life-saving medications and you can't get to your corner store, we do specialty medications to keep you alive. If you're a local business and you can do the same thing for others, please let us know so we can get out the word. We already talked about what's going on in other parts of LA where people are building areas to feed people, to service people. If you know about these places, let us know. This is our job here. Let's go to Karen in San Mo. Karen, you're on Rethinking Heroes. Welcome.
Hi. So I'm in Santa Monica, and I did evacuate Wednesday night, but then I went home yesterday, and then I got an evacuation alert, and a friend told me that it was a mistake. It went to all of Los Angeles. Now I've got an evacuation warning, and I don't know what's real and what isn't, and what's a mistake and what isn't, and my stomach is doing flip-flops.
Well, this does happen. We did have one that went off that the government earlier today in a press conference did say was an oops. It's hard to know. If you can at least evacuate with something, you could always come back, but you don't know unless you're able to see.
Right. Sorry. It wasn't an evacuate. It was an evacuate warning to be on alert.
Okay. Then you're good. Just make sure you have that bag packed, your survival kit, whatever that is, which includes water. If you happen to have a small medical kit with tubes of antibiotics and other things.
I already evacuated on Wednesday. I went to the Westwood Convention Center. But what I'm saying is now I don't know what's real and what isn't. In other words, what's a mistake and what isn't. And it's very stressful to not know and nobody to call. I'm sure the Santa Monica government is overwhelmed with calls right now.
Well, it sounds like the best choice you can make is just be warned, and then you'll wait if there is an actual physical warning that does compel you to leave. But until then, you just have a packed bag and hang on.
Yeah. Okay. And if anybody knows a place we can actually call to see what is a mistake and isn't a mistake in terms of evacuation notices, that would be helpful.
We will try to find that information and get it to you in the next hour at the 10 o'clock hour. And if somebody calls in with that information, you'll be able to hear it as well. So it's an excellent question. And the more we know, the more we know. I thank you so much, Karen in Santa Monica. My best hopes go out with you. And thankfully, it's only a cautionary standby and not the real thing. So best of luck to all of us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for what you're doing for us. We really appreciate it for those of us still in sort of a crisis.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Imagine America's second largest city in this condition with 4 fires circumnavigating, many of which are still not contained. The skies, because it's daylight, are still overcast, looking like it's sunset time. And it just continues. And much of this is because we live, as we know, we've had droughts on and off, and then it rains and it stops when it rains. Things grow, they go crazy, they're thirsty, they grow, then they dry out. And then when something happens, it just immolates, which is what we've seen. And we've lost entire chunks of neighborhoods. If that's happened to you, if you were in the Pacific Palisades and you had a home there, what is your understanding of that for other people who may be in the same situation, who won't have electricity, who may only have a radio in their car, or maybe a portable radio, or nothing at all, and are watching this on a live stream right now on YouTube or Instagram or somewhere else? We would like to hear from you as well. Our regular phone lines are 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. You can also go to kpfk.net, kpfk.net, and that will take you into our StreamYard system, our video system, where you can come on just like a regular phone call and also talk to us that way at kpfk.net. Let's go to Teresa in Santa Monica. You're on Rethinking Heroes.
Hello, yes, this is Teresa Bonpane, and my husband and I have been supporters of KPFK for over 50 years, and I'm so proud of you and KPFK for what you're doing right now, and it makes me proud to have been a member of such a wonderful organization. I hope people will be thankful, and I know they are, and that those of us who can make sure that we keep you in business, because you're doing a great service right now. And I'm very, very appreciative. And to answer one question, there is an organization called, Watch Duty, WATCHDUTY.org, where they keep information flowing at all times, and people can find out information there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Teresa. And I remember your husband, Blaze, who was quite the superhero and will continue to be in the legacy of history. So thank you for calling in today.
Thank you very much. And he's still very much with us, you can be assured.
Oh, I know it.
Very, very much so. Wonderful. Thank you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. That opens up a line in Los Angeles at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, 818-985-5735. We're also taking your video calls. Simply go to kpfk.net, kpfk.net, click the link, and boom, you're on. It's a video call. So we're doing it for people with whatever technology is available. Many people have been without electricity for 3 days, all the way up in Woodland Hills down to all over the place. There's about 500,000 people still without electricity. Cell phones tend to last about 4 or 5 days worth of signal. Landlines poop out in a much shorter period of time. With no electricity, it's hard to be in touch. You need to be in touch. You need to feel connected. You need to feel tethered to us. I am here because I'm volunteering to be here with you, because I need to hear your voices too. We all need to know we are not alone. Coming up in the next hour, we're also going to extend this for a second hour. We're going to be bringing on various different experts, different angles, different ways for you to learn even more. This is what radio does best. We get to do it real time, and your voices come in real time too when you call. We're going to take a quick pause. When we return, we'll take the last few calls, and then we're going to enter into the second hour here on Rethinking Heroes. Cary Harrison with you. Back in a flash.
Preventing truth decay. Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com. We are in complete control. Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
And it is Rethinking Heroes, rethinkingheroes.com. Don't forget to sign up for your free Rethinking Heroes newsletter. We will post this entire segment. It's probably going to end up being 2 hours, which will include transcripts of all your calls. Plus, we're going to be bringing on experts shortly in the next few minutes. We're going to be doing special live coverage of the California wildfires here on KPFK. And you'll want to be able to look back at this and also be able to pull out of it important information that you didn't have. Some of the questions that were asked earlier, we're going to try to get those answered, like, well, who do you call to find out if it's a false alert or not? How real is this? All of these things we're going to be exploring coming up. I'll be hosted along with Sylvester Rivers and Bob Henley. He's the GM of a Pacifica station. So we're going to be going deep and hard on this, plus video streaming at the same time, continuing this live video stream. If you go to Facebook, you'll see the KPFK video page. If you go to YouTube, you'll see mine. Simply put in Cary Harrison, CaryHarrison. Same thing on Twitter X, same thing on Instagram, same thing on LinkedIn. So that no matter what platform, where you are, you can participate. You can read what's going on. Many of them do real-time transcriptions, closed captioning. You can put comments in, and you can use kpfk.net. kpfk.net if you actually want to call in as you would on Zoom and do a video call. So I would recommend that too if a phone is tough. For instance, if you're listening on a portable radio, or even if you're listening on your phone, you can't really call in on your phone while you're listening on the same device. But you could use kpfk.net and just jump in on the show that way. So please feel free to use everything at your access, everything with a chip and a signal. And I'm just going to ask for time cues so we know what's coming up to the next hour. This is KPFK 90.7 FM, Los Angeles. We are also in a variety of other cities, going up to Santa Barbara on a variety of different frequencies, including all the way out to China Lake, down to San Diego area. We are here as a public service. We are here as your public radio station, doing what radio does best, opening up the live phone calls, taking your calls, taking your reactions, letting you know you're not alone, and hearing what you think, what you know, what you see, for the benefit of the other 14 million people in our gigantic market, this being the media capital of Earth. So it's the least we can do. Let's go to the phones here on KPFK 90.7 FM in Los Angeles. That was called a station ID. Say hi to Doc. Doc, you're on Rethinking Heroes.
I can hardly hear you. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you great.
Neat. Nice to hear your voice this morning. I'd like to remind folks a little bit about what you should be doing if you're suffering from this terrible air quality, as most of us are in Los Angeles. Most of us should be wearing masks, but in addition, you'd want to seriously boost up certain nutritional supplements, such as omega-rich fish oil, vitamins A and D, and any other vitamins that tend to be exhibit antioxidant activity, such as C, E, and selenium. This is absolutely vital. You need to at least double what you normally take. I'm functioning pretty well, but only because I've doubled what I normally take. It's absolutely vital for protection of your lungs and your entire metabolism.
What is your opinion on quercetin? Quercetin.
Oh, I guess I'm not up on that. I can't really speak to
Quercetin
that.
is an awesome, what it does is zinc, as we know. Viruses do not like zinc. It goes right into the cells. And so it's pretty useful in a situation where that would be appropriate. But for right now, obviously common sense, use what you have and use that COVID mask that you probably stuck in a drawer somewhere.
Oh, absolutely.
These particulates floating in the air are large, and they will lodge in the alveoli of your lungs. And you may cough them out. You may not cough them out. You don't want them there. So start to walk around like it's COVID. It is a really smart thing. Doc, I want to thank you for your call. We're going to switch over to a different show. It is going to sound exactly the same, but I'm just going to rebrand it so that you know what's going on. It is now 10 a.m. here in Los Angeles, which is 1 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be doing special live coverage of the California wildfires here on KPFK. I want to point out that on the KPFK website, Watch Duty is now up on the webpage. It's at the top of the page and other resources. So you can go there and find out up to the minute what you need to know about what's going on. So that has been done in the background. Let me bring in Sylvester Rivers. He's on a Zoom call at a separate location. And Sylvester, I'm hoping you can hear me. I can hear you, and glad to have you on board.
Can you hear me?
I hear you now.
Okay, I'm trying to set up my mic. This was talking about live radio, impromptu. So I'm still setting up my mic, but
use your bar voice as opposed to your library voice. Belt it out, baby.
I heard you talking about masks. That's very important. I had to go downtown yesterday, and of course the air is grayish, darkish, and you could see the embers floating through the air. So you might not think it's there, but it is there. I went out in my backyard today and I looked at a chair and you could see the little white soot on there. So it's bad. I do recall seeing things this bad before in LA at some of the Malibu fires. So it's just an ongoing crisis. And on the program this morning, we talked about people were always trying to put causes and what this didn't happen and that didn't happen. But I think what we have to do is look at look at the root cause of the problem. And hopefully we can grab somebody on the phone who is an environmentalist and talk about global warming.
Well, let's do that right now. I'm going to let you set up your mic, and I'll just take a minute to sort of do a refresher on that, because this is near and dear to my heart. I went to Florida during the last two hurricanes to help out, to go on some of our sister stations there and do just this and talk to people who were in a world of hurt and help get them the relief that they need and the information they need. And climate change is so real. Many of us here in LA are wondering, how can this possibly be happening in the middle of winter? Well, scientists are now saying that fire is a year-long risk in California due to California's average temperature warming by around 2 degrees since 1980. And you say 2 degrees. What's that? Child's play. It's nothing. Well, it may not seem like much, but what we're seeing now is what that 2-degree difference actually means. Think about it. Never happened before, and now it's happening all the time. This is the face of climate change, in which the average number of days where vegetation is available for fire has doubled since the 1980s, resulting in extreme fire behavior at different times of the year. And much of our city, if you're up in Runyon Canyon, you like to go hiking anywhere in the Santa Monica Mountains or in the Angeles Forest, anywhere you go, you just see dry bristle everywhere. It's just dry bristle everywhere. Then it rains, it suddenly explodes into life. The sun beats on it. We have a drought, and now you've got kindling for hundreds of miles in every direction. And all it takes is one charcoal briquette blowing out of a Weber grill, or a bad actor, as they say, which they're investigating right now in certain parts of Los Angeles, or even the flicking of a cigarette out of a car can cause this level of mayhem. So climate change is real, and whatever you and I can do individually to mitigate that, at least we're not adding to the problem. Larger problem, as I was talking to Al Gore, it really does require real treaties that grown-ups are willing to back. It really does require governments to decide who can burn how much coal, put how much particulates, use the sky, the public sky of Earth as their personal wastebasket. And I think we've all grown beyond thinking that that's a good idea. So we'll get into that a little later. Sky, sounds like you're back online perfectly. And tee up, because you're a voice well known here on KPFK.
Okay, let me do what I love live radio. Okay, I think my mic is slipped up. How's that sound, Wendell?
I think you sound pretty good. You're a little monophonic. Can you lean to the left?
Okay, I'm to the left now. How's that?
Perfect.
Okay, so what you were saying is so key. You're an environmentalist, and what we have to remember is the winds, the Santa Ana winds. This is not even the fire season, but the winds were we have Santa Ana winds every year, but these were extraordinary winds. And I hate to say this, but a friend was hit by a tree and was killed during the windstorm. The winds, if people don't know it here, we have these trees, imported palm trees. They're not indigenous, and these huge leaves fall out of them. And it's very dangerous because you hear boom, boom. When I was during the windstorm, which started the fires, it sounded like people were beating like bombs on the house, boom, boom, because they're falling and they're hitting everywhere. So when you go outside, you have to look up and make sure one doesn't fall on your head. But this gentleman, I believe he was in Pasadena, he went out the door and just by accident, the tree fell when he went out. And so that's one casualty. I don't know if he's counted in the deaths due to this storm, who knows? But that's what we're experiencing in Los Angeles. The other thing is, this is normal. There are fires everywhere. If you recall last year in Canada, there was a huge fire. The smoke got all the way to New York. And what I understand though, Harrison, you might be able to let me know about this. In nature, the forest and the pine trees, they're actually fire resistant, but the other part is not. So it needs that to incubate the process of the new trees growing. I learned that last year when I was in Yosemite, and it doesn't make as much sense as when they said it to me. But I didn't know they were fire resistant, because when you go into these big woods, you see the trunks of the trees still there, but the pine cones were burnt off, and that actually creates, they drop down, and then the forest replenishes. It's like the whole process, environmental process going back and forth and to and forth. But now with the global warming, it seems like anything goes. there was never this many fires in the wintertime. But with that wind, the dry airs, that's what they call a perfect storm. So the perfect storm created conditions. And now we're in this, hopefully the winds don't come back, because then it's terrible. Harrison,
I'm going to jump in,
yes,
Sylvester,
right?
just reintroduce you, because if they're not watching on video, they're not going to know who you and I are. Cary Harrison with you. This is an extension of previously Rethinking Heroes. We're now doing a special live coverage of the California wildfires on KPFK, talking to Sylvester Rivers. He's a voice that you know here on KPFK, and we're examining some of the causes of this. Also, we're going to be bringing in your phone calls so that you can tell us what you see, what you hear, what you've learned, and also appreciate that you're not alone. We are here responsive. This is not going to be an outgoing signal for an hour. It's going to be interactive, because your voice matters. We're talking a bit about climate change and the nexus, the overlap with this impossible situation. We've seen a real increase and spread in wildfire risk. We've gone from kind of having a wildfire season at the end of the summer to, in some places like Los Angeles, now having a wildfire season all year round. That includes Northern California, which people, fantasize about the fog rolling into San Francisco, yet places like Paradise burn completely down. Climate change and wildfires remove most or all of the vegetation from hillsides when they happen. That vegetation acts to really stabilize hillsides. So if you're removing all of that vegetation, it can make it a lot easier for the next time it rains. And we all know what Laurel Canyon looks like when it rains. Loose soil, loose material. It starts to move downhill. So we can expect mudslides and landslides to a certain degree the next time it rains after this particular event. If you ever look at the NOAA website, the national NOAA, the government weather body, if you look at their website, there are rain events over areas that have burned in the last couple of years. You're going to see they always have flash flood warnings or flood watches over them whenever there's even minor rain events, for this very reason, because it's too easy for that material to move downhill after wildfire. So I would want to remind everybody that once this thing is out and everything is quiet again, when it does rain, we're going to have to deal with that. You want to be aware as you're in your recovery and rebuilding. Sylvester Rivers, I know you have some thoughts on this.
Very well said. The mudslides are the next catastrophe that could possibly happen. And I shared something with my listeners this morning, Harrison, and I'll share it again. Last year, because we look, everybody's putting blame on this person and that person, and why weren't they doing this, and why didn't they do that? And hopefully the callers will call in and give us solutions to this. One of the solutions is we have to stop the globe from warming so much. Global warming. This is not normal for these winds to be so high or to be so dry during rainy season. And then what's happening, last year there was Malibu fires. So what did the insurance companies do? Nearly 70% of the State Farm property policyholders in Pacific Palisades learned last summer that they would lose their home insurance. So it's all about the money, the drill, baby, drill, these problems. You're blaming it on the mayor was out of town. She didn't know there was going to be a fire. We don't know if there's an arsonist. All these speculations. But one thing we do know is that we have irregular climate changes. And this is causing all year round so many earthquakes, so many, I think, hurricanes. There was like two back to back. This is abnormal. So we have to look at the root of the problem first and then go from there. I also shared with my listeners, people were blaming it on the governor, some kind of water policy he has. And I mentioned that we live near an ocean. There's an ocean next to us. And I had maintained that what we could do, the most water is used flushing toilets. you could pump that water, the salt water. You can't use the metal pipes. You could use PVC pipes, bring that up and use that to be dual pipes to flush toilets in this multi-million person city instead of using fresh water. Use the ocean water. So there's solutions, but we can't look at them because of the for-profit margin. So, then we have to look at the budget that I think the people talked about that. Let me try to pull up some statistics here. But the majority of the LA budget went to policing, and they reduced the fire department's budget. Of course, they didn't know, but and then there's because the policing makes money. You incarcerate people. I think there was some legislation passed, Proposition 6, which said you can people who are incarcerated are still slaves. In other words, slavery does not apply to those incarcerated. Therefore, companies here in Los Angeles, Southern California, are using slave labor, i.e., incarcerated people, paying them pennies on the dollar to make their products. Even I heard that when you call customer services, sometimes those are prisoners and they have no choice. If they don't do it, then they are punished. Also, they use those prisoners to fight the fires. When they get out, they don't hire them because that doesn't count. That experience doesn't count. So we're in a situation where we have to change the whole concept of how we're living and what we do and who we believe.
It's true. And Mr. Rivers, we also have the limitations of we're fighting wildfires with urban water systems, fire hydrants, corner people's garden hoses. This shouldn't happen because the idea of climate change, which has been fought by our political forces in this country on both sides for so many decades, that it has caught up to us and it is articulating itself in the worst and real ways, and people are literally unprepared. Plus, when a fire breaks out, there's a fire hydrant and a garden hose. It takes X amount of time for the fire trucks to get there, and by then it's already out of control. So each of us is going to have to think of sort of a different way to examine this. Cary Harrison with you. I am extending, well, this is not Rethinking Heroes. This is an extension thereof. We're joined by Sylvester Rivers, and we're doing updates on the fire, doing it for you and taking your calls because it's important to hear your voice, what you see, what you hear. You can give us a call at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. And please forgive me for my smoke-torn voice, but I'm one of probably tens of thousands who sound exactly like Brenda Vaccaro without having the shampoo. So I want to hear what you know, what you're experiencing, and I don't want you to feel alone at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. You can also make a video call simply by going to kpfk.net, kpfk.net, and that will bring you right into our live video stream, which is happening on everything with a chip and a signal. The recent fires in Los Angeles are a direct consequence of the changing climate, which is another effect of global warming. Global warming is accumulating enormous quantities of heat that normally should be reflected back into space. 70% of the energy that we receive from the sun is shed off by the planet by radiating it back into the blackness of space. But that has been interrupted because of the accumulation of CO2. Call it whatever you want, coal-fired fire plants, coal-fired power plants, anything else that puts particulates up. It can be your car exhaust, even the dreaded bovine flatulence. All of it has created conditions in which some parts of the planet have warmed up quite a bit. We happen to be living in one of those areas, while others are cooling off. Some receive more rain than others along the coast in the Pacific here. This has been the issue for California for the last 10 years. We've been in exceptional periods of drought. You'll remember just 2 years ago. Think about it. Rainwater in our civilization is treated as trash. We treat it as waste. We treat it as a nuisance. It's released back into the oceans, back into the bay, into sewers, not collected or stored for periods of severe drought. Then when we have severe drought, oh, well, how terrible it is. Everything dries out. You get a wildfire, and there you are. With that rainwater goes trash from the city. It's mixed, and more often than not, our beaches here in Los Angeles have signs that say no swimming. And if you do want to swim, you end up with an ear infection. We're also paving everything where the water would have normally drained into the ground, as it has for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years. And without that water, you get exacerbated conditions of the scarcity of water. And then when even a small flame of any sort comes into contact, everything explodes into fire. That's what we're looking at today. That's why we're taking your calls, letting you release your anxieties, share with us, know you're not alone, and know, more importantly, let your neighbors and friends know that you're not alone or that you're even still alive at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735.
Hit option 2. No, I'm sorry. Hit option 1 to get on the air.
And you can also make a video call, kpfk.net, kpfk.net. Let's go to Nancy on line 1. Nancy, you're welcome to this special fire coverage.
Yeah. Oh, hi. Oh, I'm so glad that Sylvester Rivers is on too. I heard your program earlier. I really enjoy your program. We really got to get to the root of the problem. But first, I'll let you know, I'm out here in Brentwood. It's sort of the side that's furthest away from the fires, so it's not too bad. I do get breathe smoke. I wear an N95 mask. That's important. You wear the right kind of mask. It's the best protective mask if you have to go outside. And my brother and I, he got me this thing that sucks in some of the smoke that gets inside. And I hear you can kind of make your own too. I heard that after I got mine last year. But it's good to have to protect your lungs, especially if you're an elder like me. I'm almost 80 years old. We really got to get to the root of this problem, and I'm glad that Sylvester kind of got into that a little bit. It's called capitalism. Capitalism to survive has got to grow. It's also got to create wars. I mean, all the big bombs going off, whether it's the United States, Israel, or Russia, there are huge bombs going off in these wars. That also causes a lot of pollution, as indeed agribusiness. And I mean, there's just so many things that is disrupting the climate of Mother Earth. And there's a lot of stuff we can learn from indigenous people when we try to build a new type of society. So we really got to have a revolution here, an eco-social society, and get rid of capitalism so we can save our planet, and especially poor people who are on the front lines of this.
Where do we start, Nancy?
Well, organize. I know I've been doing this for years. I'm from the 60s, and I bet you have too. So, right now my health hasn't been as good as it has been, but I'm doing the best I can. I will be on that. I'll be hopefully at downtown when we have the inauguration of that yellowhead fascist. Of course, I voted on with the Peace and Freedom Party. So that's, so if you're a Green or Peace and Freedom Party person or any third party, the Democrats did all they could to try to keep those third party candidates from having their say, who told these truths. So, but that's all we can do. I just hope that people will wake up, because especially people who maybe voted Republican this time or even voted Democrat, because, it's just two sides of the same coin anyhow, that they wake up, and rather they choose to try to make the Democrats better or not, they had to realize that it's the capitalist system which creates racism and imperialism and the American empire might be becoming a little weaker, but it's still the biggest player right now. But there are upcoming powers that may have imperial ambitions too. So I mean, China is not China under Mao anymore. It's they got a lot of capitalists there,
Exactly.
Thank you so much for your call, Nancy. Thank you very much. That opens up a line, 818-985-KPFK, 5735 as we take your calls. I would like to keep the train a little on the track and focus on the fire and what we know and how it's affecting people and impacting people. The DMA, the size of our larger Los Angeles area is massive. I mean, this is like the world's longest 50-mile suburb with 67 cities tucked into it, all sort of tethered together with no boundaries and borders, and 7-Elevens turn into big houses, and you just sort of don't know where you are, but everyone is affected. And when an entire chunk of the second largest city in the United States literally vanishes over the course of days, everyone is affected. People's jobs, a lot of people won't simply go back to work because that work is gone, or the infrastructure that housed that work, or the idea that you can still make a living doing that particular work may be gone for thousands of people. These are other realities we have to look at. That's why we're keeping the phones open and letting you reflect and resonate with your fellow Angelinos. Let's go next to line 2, David. And when you do call in at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735, press 1 on the phone option. It'll bring you right to us. Hello, David. Hello, David.
Hi, good morning, Cary. I just wanted to, reiterate that I would really like to hear from those that are affected directly by the fire. And this is the City of the Angels, so we've really got to have our better angels, and we got to keep a lookout for people that would do bad things during this time. And so we should be helping our neighbors and comforting them. So that's what I wanted to say. And yes, I would like to hear more from people that are directly affected by the fires. I called into Mitch's show yesterday, and I was very touched by the poignant commentary from Sonali Kohector, who was calling in, and we all know Sonali from KPFK. So I would like to hear more from people, and I'm wishing the best for Topanga. We're not hearing too much about Topanga, but I'm really hoping the best. I did live there a long time ago and worked up there. So yes. Anyway, I'll get off now, and hopefully we'll hear more things that are related to people that are directly experienced, have direct experience with what's been happening on the ground. Okay, thank you so much, Cary.
Thank you so much, David. Cary Harrison with you, along with Sylvester Rivers, KPFK special fire coverage reports right now. Also taking your live calls at 818-985-KPFK, 818-985-5735. Press number 1 when you call in at 818-985-KPFK. You can also do a video call simply by going to kpfk.net. And if a phone is not handy for you, or if you're listening on a phone and can't make the phone call at the same time, just do kpfk.net. It will take you right in. We're looking at the consequences of the fires as a portion of climate change. During the 2 recent hurricanes just a few months ago that hit Florida, that were so devastating, costing California will now be the most expensive, call it a natural disaster, at least nature biting back at $50 billion with a B dollars. What happened in Florida was less, but only one weatherman, in Miami, mentioned climate change with Category 5 hurricanes. There never have been such a thing. There never have. Katrina, that was our first. Now they're just all 5s. But he said climate change, an NBC reporter down in Miami, and of course he's been suspended because it is politically inconvenient and also completely flies in the face of the plan to now start putting oil derricks in the Gulf of Mexico, jokingly or realistically being renamed as the Gulf of America. So all those beaches that tourists like to go to will have oil derricks, only exacerbating and making more extreme the problem, which we will experience in Los Angeles. So yes, there is an overlap of politics, but there's also an overlap of understanding what's real. If we never mention climate change, there's nothing to fight because it's not there. Orwell 101, Huxley 101. So we need to be sober and sane when we start to evaluate what things really are. I spoke to Al Gore a couple of years ago, and he said part of what the climate deniers are doing is they are communicating that the only way to solve the crisis is for just you and me, individuals, to make changes to our own lives. But Al Gore says, but we've made those changes. Many millions have. We recycle. We've stopped kidding ourselves. And he says it's not a me problem. It's a we problem. He says we have to have new laws. We have to have a treaty. We have to have collective action so that, for example, a tax on CO2 to replace employment taxes. We have to have a treaty in Bali. We can't just leave this up to individual, private, isolated actions. Here we are in one of those so massive, so extreme that all the people of Earth are watching Los Angeles on television, but not for the Kardashians. It's become a world problem. And right now, they all see it for what it is, as do we. So let us give each other permission to talk about what the root sources of this are so that we never have to see this again. We do have an expert on Zoom with Sylvester. It's Robert Henley. And Sylvester, would you like to come on and tee him up, please?
Okay, Robert Henley. Is he on now?
I sure am.
Hey, how you doing, my friend? Give us your background. Who
Sure. Thanks very much for inviting me. So I am the interim general manager at WBAI, your Pacifica sister station, and also someone that has spent my career covering things like Sandy, Superstorm Sandy, COVID, of course, 9/11, all things that are part of our consciousness. During Sandy, I was detailed via National Guard helicopter to provide the national audio feed for the first damage assessment done by Governor Christie. And of course, the cataclysm that we had there, I mean, I'll never forget the sound of, we went to a small bungalow community, some 200 homes in Sayreville, New Jersey, that had been moved off their foundation by a 13-foot wall of water coming off the Raritan Bay from Sandy. And that sound of that many women crying as a helicopter stepped down and the rotor stopped is something that I'll never forget. And so we are left ourselves once again, as you guys have been so ably pointing out, having to deal with what we hope to do is help keep people safe. Priority one, right? We want to make sure that they get real-time information that is reliable, that helps them and their families survive this ordeal. And as you say, set a broader agenda about how is it that we are in the 21st century so ill prepared? How is it that all these land use decisions were made without the consciousness, so just basic logic? How did we think we could build such large artifices without the water and infrastructure capability to keep them safe in the event of fire? All of this. Why is it that we live in a nation that spends $1 trillion of borrowed money on exporting military that blows up Gaza, while at the same time we're unable to provide our volunteer firefighters with basic respiratory equipment to keep them safe to go home to their families?
Wow, that's great. And I have to, you're the manager of WBAI. I have to congratulate you because we did a network elections coverage that was very good. So this gentleman is on the ball, and I think BAI headed that up. This feels a little bit like it with you on and Harrison on and myself. But what you said is really interesting because you mentioned why, and I think as we talked about the money involved, the money of, okay, it's going to cost too much money. We blink, or we don't even blink when we spend $20 billion for war, but to help the environment out, to help infrastructure, or to help those needs, and then insurance companies, money, it's all money. Would you mention that? And then how can we be safe in a world that the priority is money?
And then we're going to jump to some calls.
What happens is through collective action, we are able to first keep ourselves safe. So the agenda today and through the weekend, I know you're going to be staffing. There's going to be no automated engineering. We're going to be here for people throughout this period of time to help them stay safe and get to a better place. Your colleague mentioned about the economic dislocation. And that's something that's going to be very real and tangible. And it's something that we have to help shed light on it. And of course, the tens of thousands of unsheltered brothers and sisters caught up in the switches of this cataclysm. And it's up to us to raise a voice for them, to make sure that we don't have happen what we saw happen in COVID in New York City, where the homeless were an afterthought, and as this disease ravaged our city. And so it's through collective action that we can have this conversation. And also, there's a lot of heroism going on. There are men and women right now who are putting their lives on the line, literally trying to protect the transmitter on Mount Wilson that has been at risk. The thought that over 100 brave firefighters kept that fire at bay so that we could continue to communicate with each other, we need to lift that up as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We have Robert Henley standing by. He's with WBAI, which is our sister station in New York City. We also have Sylvester Rivers, plural, because many rivers flow into Sylvester. Cary Harrison with you. And we are also live streaming on video. We're live streaming on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter X. You can just put in Cary Harrison, bring up any of those platforms. You'll see and hear. We've got a couple of calls teed up. We've got Nick and Juan. We're going to get to you in just a second. I want to give an update on what is available to those of us in Los Angeles right now. Lyft, like Uber, if you use CA Fire Relief 25, so California Fire Relief 25, CA Fire Relief 25, you're going to get 2 free rides worth up to $25 each. That's $50 total. And it's valid for the first 500 riders until it goes on for a couple of more days until midnight. So be one of those first 500 riders, free rides worth $25 each. That's CA Fire Relief 25 on Lyft. Uber, different. You can enter the code WILDFIRE25, WILDFIRE25 on Uber in the app's wallet section for 1 free ride worth up to $40. These are companies kicking in that might have been conspicuously missing in past times, but at least during now, we're starting to find out who our friends really are. There's temporary housing right now, Airbnb, yet another, banned in some cities like West Hollywood and others, considered participatory in the reason that people pay high rents. However, in a time of emergency, they are showing we can always keep pressure on people to continue to be better partners. They're showing good partnership here. They're partnering with 211 LA Airbnbs, and they're offering free temporary housing for wildfire evacuees. If you are a wildfire evacuee and you're looking for a place to live, maybe you're living in your car, there are 211 Airbnbs. You might have to share it with someone who knows. All you have to do is submit your information to check availability. Go on the Airbnb app. Spaces are limited. Eligibility criteria apply. Clearly, they want people who are on the up and up. Completing the form does not guarantee a stay, they say. So they're making sure that somehow you're up to snuff. But it's 211 LA Airbnbs. You can go to there. Public transportation, the metro, is now free. It is free. You can ride the subway for free. You can ride the buses for free. Fare collection has been suspended during this wildfire emergencies. Utility assistant, AT&T, is offering unlimited data, talk, and text to customers in wildfires elected areas through February the 6th. So for another month. You can check a list of eligible zip codes on the official AT&T website. Verizon, another one showing up. They're waiving, getting rid of call, text, and data charges for any customer in the hardest hit areas. Free Wi-Fi and charging stations are also going to be available at 3 wildfire shelters. Health and fitness, very important for many. Planet Fitness is providing free access to facilities for evacuees and first responders, including showers and locker rooms and Wi-Fi until January 15. You can contact your nearest Planet Fitness location for details. I will have more upcoming. Cary Harrison with you. We have a clip from President Biden. Then we will go to Nick we will go to Juan. Please stand by. Thank you for your calls as the other ones tee up. This is President Biden, who was here in Los Angeles last night. This is a moment from his speech.
Well, good afternoon. I returned from Los Angeles last night, and the devastation out there is catastrophic in California. Thousands of houses, schools, businesses burned to the ground. Communities wiped out, lives lost, families forever changed. They're the worst fires that ever hit Los Angeles, ever. And as soon as these fires broke out, I approved the Fire Management Assistance Grants. That's a term of art and how we get help to local officials. These grants cover California's firefighting costs for things like firefighting equipment, firefighters' salaries, and special capabilities like aircraft. Next, yesterday I immediately approved Governor Newsom's request for what they call, and I know this is all sounds like government talk, but it's called the Major Disaster Declaration. This declaration allows folks at the request of the governor. The declaration allows folks who have been impacted to get immediate cash assistance to cover things like everything from groceries to baby formula to prescriptions. Because as you've seen and you reported, a lot of these places are burned to the ground. There's not a single thing left in their homes. And so if they contact disasterassistance.gov, anybody who's lost everything or anything of consequence, disasterassistance.gov or 1-800-2, I beg your pardon, 1-800-621-3362. That's disasterassistance.gov, 1-800-621-3362 to get the kind of help they need for everything from the basics that they don't have access to right now. And this morning, due to the magnitude of the disaster, I was talking with the governor. He requested if I could increase the federal funding that was authorized under this legislation from 75% to 90%. We're increasing it to 100% of all the costs to be covered by the federal government for both the fire management assistance grants and the elements of what they call the disaster declaration. So today I'm announcing that the federal government will cover 100% of the cost for 180 days. This is going to pay for things like debris and hazard material removal, temporary shelters, first responders' salaries, and all necessary measures to protect life and property. And folks, I want to underscore, I told the governor and local officials, spare no expense to do what they need to do and contain these fires and in their communities that have really been devastating.
Thank you. That was President Biden yesterday here in town. Clearly, there is.
That's actually from the White House. That's when he came back and was at the White House.
Right.
Yeah.
So solutions will be opened for relief, which is what people need to know. We will have to pressure the incoming administration to keep the same open eyes and open minds to be able to do the same thing, because this, we now know, according to the Wall Street Journal, is a $50 billion disaster, the greatest in history. And that's only because we haven't even begun to count the total value of everything. So there will be much to be done. And if you have a go bag, because some people are getting warnings on their phones, warnings, not you must do something, but you may have to do something. Here's a quickie on your go bag. 3 days of a food supply, non-perishable, water, 1 gallon per person per day. You're going to need a flashlight with extra batteries, a first aid kit, your important papers, including your medical papers, if you have any, and certificates and licenses and a passport, cash and change, phone chargers, basic toiletries, change of clothes, and of course, your medications. Let's go to Nick on line 1. You're on our special fire coverage. Welcome.
Hi there.
Hey there.
I know this will sound a little tin hat foily, but ever since Jared Kushner said that Gaza beachfront would make wonderful hotel property, I've been thinking about Rick Caruso and the Palisades.
You're not the only one, but that's up to us
and he's
to,
not
to monitor
the
that.
only vulture around.
I thought about that myself.
The thing is, I hate to be cynical or seem like I'm, conspiracy minded, but whenever anything bad happens, I try to think about, who's going to gain from it. And even if a lot of, Republicans own those homes there, I don't think that really matters to Koch. I don't think so.
Well, we saw this after Hurricane Katrina when Dick Cheney's Halliburton ran in and basically took over the entire Gulf Coast and was able to rebuild hotels all along that coastline.
That land was the market value went down on the land in Hawaii, I think 2 years ago. And a lot of investors, including Oprah Winfrey, went down there and bought the land at below market price. And I just want to say one thing before we go to our next caller, which has been, we deal with environmental justice, we deal with racial justice. And Harrison, I'm so proud of Airbnb to allow folks to come and stay. But I do recall when the Ukraine war went off, and I was doing Airbnb, and I would get all these messages on Airbnb saying host a Ukrainian refugee. But at the same time, the Haitians were being whipped on the border. So we have to look at the racism in disasters too, and the profit that's made off of disasters. And for the people to still stay safe, because that's our main purpose here, to stay safe and tell you what to do. But we have to look at the big picture, because we're talking about solutions. And why did not Airbnb ask for the Haitian refugees to be hosted? But we see that this is the area that is more white than people of color. So here they go again. So I recall that vividly when the Ukraine war first jumped off, and when the folks, the Black people in Ukraine couldn't go. So there's a lot of sympathy when you have white folks. I'm just saying, now, if I'm wrong, y'all let me know.
Excellent perspective, and it will become a major topic down the road once the smoke clears on this. Cary Harrison with you. We're doing special fire coverage. Let's now go to Professor Corbett. He's a fire expert on line 2. Professor Corbett, we want to welcome you to this special fire coverage. Professor
You with us, Glenn?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, great, Glenn. Glenn is of course a professor of fire science at John Jay and one of the world's leading experts on firefighting. Glenn, can you tell us, what are firefighters in the community up to right now? What do they face?
What are they facing right now?
Yeah. I'm asking Glenn Corbett. Glenn Corbett's on the line.
Very good.
Yeah, I mean, just following news like everyone else. Fortunately I think for the firefighters, that apparently the wind has died down quite a bit, which allows them, of course, to do a much more aggressive, basically not only attack but sort of confinement strategy, of course, to try to again stop the fire and then, of course, put it out. So this is good news for them. Of course, other resources are coming in from other places and things, particularly resources that are experts basically in wildland firefighting. So I think things are turning in the right, in the right direction for what's going on out there in Los Angeles. So I think, again, they're bringing a lot more folks in so they can rotate groups that have been fighting these fires for several days now and who are probably literally exhausted, and allow them to sort of rehab and then go back into the firefight. So I think, again, from what I can see, I think things are again, heading in the right direction here, literally.
Can you tell us about what the environmental issues might be? We do know that the nature of housing has evolved over time. We went from a period of time of wood and horsehair and plaster. Now we live complicated lives with computers, where you have all kinds of petrochemical products that are built into how we do business and how we live our lives. Can you talk about that impact and what that means in terms of both firefighters and the community. You, of course, are very well aware of the 9/11 World Trade Center circumstance, where the EPA gave us a false assurance that the air was safe to breathe, and subsequently an Inspector General report found out that the EPA had suppressed the actual asbestos reports that showed levels of concern. So can you talk about that occupational public health aspect of the fumes from these fires?
Sure. Well, listen, any fire, small or big, in today's environment, of course, produces literally hundreds of different chemical compounds, which are not really obviously safe to breathe. The fire service, of course, has been using self-contained breathing apparatus since roughly right after World War II. Actually, that's where it came from. The air tanks that the firefighters wear on their backs literally was a product of air tanks for World War II bombers, basically pilots. And so the technology moved into the fire service. So for the last 75, 80 years, the self-contained breathing apparatus for the firefighters has been updated and changed. But even with that, there's a much greater awareness of cancer within the fire service right now, and which is taking different forms. It takes a form of not only training but equipment, but also registration, for example, for firefighters for health purposes, to track their health to make sure that they catch any cancer early enough on that it can be treated. So, again, today's world, we live in a lot of synthetic materials. Plastics, of course, are we call them hydrocarbon based. They're based from oil, basically. When you mix it with other chemical compounds, you end up with this really, again, toxic mix of materials and things. So you've got that material that's being produced during a fire, these chemical compounds, and is propelled up into the air and downwind, basically, of course, as we've seen very much here. But on the other hand, I think, the other issue I think you bring up here is that after these fires have been extinguished, that there's elements or remainders of what were in people's homes up until now, basically. And of course, those are, again, the same materials in all sorts of different shapes and sizes. I think, when it comes to plastics and things like that, it's not an issue. But as we saw in Hawaii, which I've been doing this stuff for over 40 years. It's the first time I ever saw that there was a much more attention played in Lahaina on Maui to the cleanup when it came to chemicals and things like that. So when it comes to for example, lithium, of course, is the obvious one, things like that there's a much more proactive approach at trying to remove that stuff and separate it from the regular trash and debris. But, we're talking, Maui and Lahaina are kind of really tiny compared to what we're doing here in Los Angeles. And, one of the issues for us is going to be, that we're going to go ahead and start cleaning up very quickly. And so that's where the pressure is going to be on to do that. And so keeping the things I just discussed in mind, but most importantly, keeping in mind the requirement for respiratory protection, so masks and things like that, to do that work. We're not talking about a self-contained breathing apparatus with pressurized air. Those are the tanks on the firefighters' backs that you see. These are more respirators that have filters in them to basically need to be worn. And of course, one of the issues of ground zero in New York City after 9/11 was the fact that there was an issue of availability of those masks, the usability of those masks too. A lot of firefighters stopped using because they're really very difficult to wear and just slowed everything down. So there's got to be a lot of vigilance on the part of the folks who are going to be involved in the cleanup here to make sure that's done properly. But I can tell you,
and as a consequence, Glenn, it's important to note we lost 343 firefighters on the day of 9/11. We've lost upwards of 360.
So you guys, I don't want to get lost in 9/11 here. We need to talk about what's going on here and offer relief. But I do thank you for the call very much. Thank you so much. It is important information. We'll make sure that we have that on the blog. I'll also, if you sign up for our free newsletter at rethinkingheroes.com, we'll have a transcript of anything further about 9/11 or respiratory for you listening, for you who may not be able to go out and buy a mask. The hardware stores not be available. They may all be sold out. as they are often in an emergency. Please wear your regular COVID mask. Do avoid breathing in the particulates, as I was saying earlier, as we were all saying earlier. Make sure that you protect your lungs, because right now this stuff is going to be floating in the air. When you do leave, if you do evacuate, take photos and videos of your property for insurance. That is going to be key. If you don't have photos of your property for insurance, the insurance company will not honor your claim. Evidence, evidence, evidence. Keep digital copies of important documents, the ones I was talking about, your passport, marriage licenses, things that are important to you that you would consider an important document. Digital copies of that, just in case. Things can get wet. You can lose a document in the back of your car. Your car could get stolen, God forbid. So you'll want to have digital copies. Also have a backup battery for your phone. Most of us do. Make sure you have that. Charge it in your lighter if you need to, and make sure you're good. Let's go next, finally, to, we have time for one more. We can go to Latif. Latif, welcome to this special fire coverage. Hey, Latif.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah, I was just calling in to say, I have a great friend of mine that he and his wife has now suffered from the fire out in the Altadena area, close to the street called Mariposa, close to the hill, the foothills over there. And musician, his name is Jerry, lost a house, had a studio in the back, his instruments and so forth. So just trying to put it out there that for the resources and for the great work, like you said, that the first responders are doing, that they're able to get to him and help him out and assist him in this time of loss that he and his wife have suffered and everything. So just putting it out there for help and assistance, whatever one can do. And this is my humble way of trying to at least, put the word out that he's went through a heavy ordeal.
You're a good man. Thank you so much for that. Very much appreciate it, Latif. Have a quick message here from Stuart Landau. He's our engineer from KPFK. Again, apologies for my smoke-torn voice, doing the best I can here. He says, the engineer, we are running on the emergency generator on our mountain. This would be, of course, what runs the transmitter for KPFK, which is the strongest FM west of the Mississippi. It takes a lot of power. I reduced our output power to extend the fuel situation and to keep the building from getting too hot. There's no exhaust fan or air conditioner for the generator. I have no idea when the building will be accessible. The winds are still howling. So it is a profound situation. It hasn't quite resolved. I want you to be able to go to kpfk.org. We have posted basically a toolkit of what you need to know right now to be able to navigate an unfolding future. Everything about how to secure your home in 5 minutes, from shutting all the windows and doors, turning on exterior lights, moving furniture away from windows, shutting off gas and propane, shutting it off and grabbing your go bag and go if you need to. Heed the warnings. If they tell you to, be prepared, because when these flames come, they come at such a speed you can't even predict them. Think about your pets too. All of that, you can go to kpfk.org. I would like to thank Maggie Lepeque. She is our new interim general director, who's doing a bang-up job. Bob Henley, who is general manager at WBAI in New York City. Gary Baca, thank you so much. Our program director, and Sylvester Rivers, who's been with us. Sylvester, thank you for coming on, by the way. Let me just say that personally. Well, let me just say it personally anyway. Thank you for coming on, and so many others. Thank you all for calling in. This has been very important to know that we are not alone. And this is what radio was built to do. It was built to connect communities through voice conversations interactively. We will be doing more and more of this as time goes on. And just know you're not alone. You can shoot me a text anytime you want at 310-737-TALK, 310-737-TALK, and I will get back to you. I'm also on social media, but if you just like regular old-fashioned texting and don't have data, that's one way, and I will be happy to help you in any way I am able, as I know KPFK here is happy to do, as is posted on their website, everything you need to know to get through this right now. Cary Harrison with you. Thank you so much for joining us. And now back to regular programming.